All right, all right, all right. You're listening to the We're Talking Football podcast. I'm Weston. With me, as always, is my right hand man, Lou. Lou, another week in the books, and we're here to discuss our kind of week 6 recap, if you will. I personally think a pretty interesting week, but now it's time to reflect on what we saw. It's Wednesday evening, and week 7 is less than 24 hours from being upon us. Time to check the temperature. How are we feeling this evening?
Feeling great as always. Anytime I'm talking to you, Weston, you're like the sun to my day. You brighten up my day so much, Weston. So I'm loving being here tonight.
Dude, I love your enthusiasm, and this is why I asked you to be a part of it, because you pay me the best compliments of all time. Remind me that I owe you 50 for that one. But before we get started, Lou, I always want to check our wins and losses and keep us honest here at the We're Talking Football
Yeah, for shit
podcast.
talking purposes.
Yes. And there are a couple things that I think we need to call out. First, I did go back and fact check this based on some text message exchanges between you and I this week. And you did call that the Tennessee Titans would beat the Buffalo Bills in Monday Night Football. Are you feeling good about that call?
Yeah, listen, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that a lot of these teams, your Buffalo Bills, your LA Chargers, can't think of the Dallas Cowboys, they're built to stop. They'll try to slow down a passing offense. So what that basically means is you are sacrificing some beef in the interior to stop the run because no one really runs, too much anymore in the modern day NFL. However, there are a couple of teams like your Browns and also your Titans that are strictly smash mouth football. And guess what? They don't match up well against these teams. So if somehow, some way, the Titans or Browns or the Vikings can keep it close, they're going to wear down these smaller, more athletic defenses, and they're just going to run all over them. And I had a feeling like, you know what? I feel like that was going to happen this past Monday, and it did.
Yeah, I predicted the Bills to win this game, but I did say that the Titans had a chance if they could control the clock and make this a establish the run and be dominant in the run, which is what they did. But I did call the Bills to win this game, and I was wrong. You were right. So there's a fact check. Second fact check is I said the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, would beat the Denver Broncos.
This
You
is
had
true.
said the Broncos. So I'm on my high horse a little bit. I mean, that game is a coin toss, like under normal
Yeah.
circumstances, but I just felt like the team would,
Rally.
yeah, would totally rally around an interim coach with everything else that was going on. And I think they did so in convincing fashion. So that was my takeaway from the week, because things for me like fantasy football and having a team on a bye week weren't so pretty this weekend. So
Mm-hmm.
that was my shining star. The other thing that I think is important, again, because I'm here to fact check us, right? That all this is recorded, all this is documented. I want to ensure that we are providing accurate information.
Of
And
course.
last week, we brought up D'Amico Ryans as a defensive coordinator. And what I'm fact checking here
Okay.
is both of us, not just you or I, both of us had who claim to be like collegiate experts on to
He's
where
not
these
from
players went.
Oklahoma.
He's not from Oklahoma. He played at the University of Alabama.
D'Amico Ryans. Wasn't there another linebacker than from Oklahoma? I don't know. Wow.
Either way, we're
You just
wrong.
blew, you just blew my mind there,
Hey,
sir.
listen, I am just every once in a while I get this glimmer of hope where it's let me go. I didn't feel so confident in that conversation or that talk track or whatever it might be. And I went back and I fact checked us. Something just didn't sit well with me. And that was it. And we were both wrong. So to the audience, again, we're not right 100% of the time, but we're going to come back here. We're going to let you know when we won. We're going to let you know when we lost. We both had a win this weekend and we both shared a loss this past
Yep.
weekend. So here we are. Nonetheless,
Quick question: were you able to see for our pick'ems who had the better
I,
record?
I did not do win-loss like for the records. I think we were, I mean, outside of me having the Bills game wrong,
You had the Lions game wrong.
I had the Lions game wrong. So, dude, I'm so glad you brought this up
Oh,
because this.
I'll point you out whenever you're wrong, anytime you want.
I love it, dude. This was, remember, if you remember exactly what I said last weekend, that this was a topic of conversation in my household due to Survivor League implications.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife and I were camping this weekend with our family, and my mother's like still alive in this pick'em league, right? Like my brother is still alive in this pick'em league. So we're going back and forth. And my wife is just like, she's so mad at me because I made her listen to our podcast on the ride up. And she's like, that
is cruel, by the way.
Very cruel and unusual punishment. But it was basically me unveiling the curtain, being like, surprise, I don't think you should pick the Bengals this week that she was so confident about. So that threw her for a loop. So I let her sleep on it all weekend. And it would come up. Dude, we were hiking through waterfalls. And this is still a topic of conversation. Like,
Sounds so romantic.
Honestly, it was definitely an enjoyable time. The unromantic parts were she'd be like, I hate you because you're making me second guess my pick. And I told her, I was like, then go with your gut. Go with your gut. Go with your gut.
Just go with Lou. Just go with Lou.
Yeah, I'm not here to point you in any direction. I'm just telling you what I think, right? Like most teams don't go 0-17 is what it pans out to be. In a home game, like I'm trying to just label what this really is. So she still decided to go with the Bengals. So when we got home from camping and we're watching the Bengals game, she is staring at me the entire game with this shit-eating grin like, what do you know about football? You and your buddy have a podcast? Like maybe I should run the podcast, right? Like that type of look. And I'm just so embarrassed, but felt so good for her. And this Pick'em League is the Survivor League is like the best thing ever because she pays more attention to football than she ever has, specifically because she wants to, I won't say why, but I'm out of this league.
Mm-hmm.
I no longer have skin in this game, right? So she is weeks beyond me in this league, and she loves every second of it.
That's awesome, bro. Good stuff, man. It's great to hear.
It's fun, family fun. All right. So since we're talking about the home, I think a perfect segue to get into our first segment, as we always do. Let's talk about those hometown takes. Your Chargers travel to the East Coast to Baltimore to play the Baltimore Ravens. My 49ers, thankfully, or not thankfully, we're on a bye week this week. So let's dive in. Let's talk about that Chargers-Ravens game.
All right, so let's start off with the good. There won't be too much. First and foremost, last week I stated that I felt like the Ravens were going to win this game. Once again, I thought it was just too much for the Chargers, what they've been through, and the gauntlet they've been through the first 5 weeks of the season, the matchups they faced, some of the traveling they've done. So once again, I have to go back to the East Coast, a 1:00 game, face a Ravens defense that I felt like was going to be too sophisticated for them. Did I not say that? I thought their blitz games were going to be sophisticated. If your offensive line can hold up against them, there's huge holes in this Ravens defense. But I thought with both the right side of that offensive line, the right guard and the right tackle, I felt like they're not going to be able to hold up. So you're going to have to make decisions quicker, or Herbert was going to have to make decisions quicker. And I always thought that was going to be a problem for the LA Chargers. So I'm a pessimistic person, to begin with, but I was not really feeling good about this game. And even if we go back 2 weeks ago, I said the Chargers need to either beat the Browns or the Ravens. They have to go 1-1 these next two games to continue their momentum. And when they beat the Browns, I thought I'd give them a little leadway to kind of have this clunker of a game before their bye against the Ravens. So the good.
100%.
Not too much, like I said. First and foremost, there was a pass rush that showed up on Sunday. They had 3 sacks against the ever elusive Lamar Jackson. Bosa was all over the field. He had a sack. Nwosu, their other edge rusher, he had a sack. And then the most impressive, I think, was Joseph, their nose tackle, Linval Joseph. How the hell does he ever get a sack on Lamar Jackson? It was very impressive. They came right up the middle, and it was a nice sack from the big guy because he's like 350. Like he's a hefty man. So for him to catch Lamar Jackson, that was impressive. The only other good thing I can think of this game is the continued development of Kaiser White, number 44.
Dude, if you didn't mention this, I was chiming in with this. I agree
Yeah,
wholeheartedly. So keep on your thought.
yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, you allude to the fact that he was all over the field. Like, who the hell was number 44? And yeah, he's been great job. He's done a great job going east and west coast when it comes to covering the field for tackles and what have you. But he showed a little more improvement on his pass coverage skills, and he hauled in 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
And he's starting to prove that he is a proven commodity on this defense. Uh, it's nice to see that his maturation is still continuing to ascend. So good for him for once again being a cog of this defense, because they do need more playmakers, and he's shown that he's stepping up. So that's pretty much all I have from a good standpoint. You also can throw in there. I didn't feel like Lamar Jackson really ran all over them. I felt like they contained him pretty well with their muddle pass rush. I know he had like 50 yards, but like normally he would kill them even more. I would say on the ground, and the yards that he got, I feel like it weren't really big chunks. It was like 7 yards here and what have you. So they contained his scrambling ability to a minimum as much as you could.
I think they contained him entirely. Dude, 211 total yards. Throwing and rushing combined through 2 picks, right? So
I think
to me, the defense wasn't the issue this week.
Oh, I disagree. I think what you're thinking, like Lamar Jackson, I told you he's MVP before this game even started. I think he's so much more intelligent now that he's literally taking what the defense has given him. And he realized the defense was honing on him, and he let the running backs, basically, the 3 running backs that they had, go get your yardage. He's like, okay, we'll kill you slowly. And I felt like he was mature enough not to force things and big things. When I need to make a big throw or a big run, I'll do that. But if you're going to give up the middle of your defense, for our running backs to rush, I'll just keep on handing the ball off. And I don't want to get too much into it, but that was a proven thing that was going on throughout the whole game, was the fact that he just let his other playmakers slowly kill the Chargers. And that's a sign of intelligence and being mature, I would say.
So give me a little bit about the bad.
A little bit. Ooh, where do we start? Okay. First and foremost,
a little bit.
Okay. If I was being completely honest with you, I did feel like they were outcoached and they had a lot of questionable play call decisions that's basically had my head scratching. I'm not talking about the 4th downs. I'm fine with the 4th downs. I'm fine with they missed. The Ravens only had 6 points on those 2 turnovers and downs. So I'm not talking about that. What I am talking about, though, Weston, is the fact that I was questioning what they saw in their matchups. How many times were they going after Marlon Humphrey?
Yeah.
But why would you go after a top 10 cornerback like that constantly?
That we both had rated in the top 10, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. Like, one of the 4th downs, you're letting your 3rd-round rookie, who's barely been on the field, Joshua Palmer, go up against Marlon Humphrey, kind of like a comeback route or like a shoulder route. And that's what you want to do on a 4th down. This kid hasn't really seen too much of the field, and he's going up against one of the best cornerbacks in the league. In a high-pressure situation, you're going to trust him to make the big catch. Didn't like that. Why? I don't understand why they weren't attacking Anthony Everett, who got murdered the week before by Carson Wentz and the Colts. I felt like they kept on going way too many times at Marlon Humphrey, and he kept on knocking the ball out of Mike Williams' hands, Joshua Palmer's hands. He showed why he was a top 10 cornerback. Next, drops. Drops an issue. Everyone keeps on talking about all the weapons that are out there in LA, and they are phenomenal, and they do a lot. They get open, big play, I have you. But drops have been an issue with the skill position for the Chargers. They have 4 players with a drop rate of 10% or higher. Williams, 13.2%, Cook, 12.5%, Allen, 11.4%, and Guyton, 10%. That's a problem when you have all those players drop balls. Those are drive killers, momentum killers. They put you back into situations where now it's 2nd and long, and you need to change your philosophy because you weren't able to get those passes. I was really concerning to see these skilled players who are highly touted just be lazy and lacks the concentration with these drops.
Yep.
And last but not least, on the offensive side, I just felt like Herbert had trouble deciphering that defense. Like I said before, the blitzes of Baltimore confused him. You can just tell the way he was playing. He just wasn't sure in himself. He wasn't trusting his first reads, and he just was. It was a struggle to get the ball out of his hand and into the correct, read. So it's kind of like reminiscent when he went against New England last year. I'm not sure if you remember that he had a clunker there.
That game. Yep.
And they do have a similar type of defense. Very complicated, multiple fronts, 3-4, 4-3. And I think that causes him to think more than he should, as opposed to just play. He's more comfortable when he's just playing, not overthinking it. On the defensive side, they were overpowered in the running game. Once again, back-to-back weeks. This is the third time this year. First with the Cowboys, then the Browns, now the Ravens. It seems to me like the majority of the game, whatever the Ravens did on first down, whoever they ran it with, automatically got 6 to 7 yards. It always was 2nd and 3 and 2nd and 4. And this is a huge problem for a defense. Why? Because when you're on 2nd and 3 and 2nd and 4, your offense can do anything. They can run it again, try to chip it away.
Playbook's wide open.
Exactly. And that causes now your defense doesn't know what to do. It makes them play tentative. The reason why I feel like this was happening is because the second and third level players on that defense, the linebackers and the safeties, were so concerned with Lamar Jackson, right? They were not being aggressive. They were being tentative. They're playing tentative and more reactionary. So let's make sure he gives the ball to, hand the ball off to Latavius Murray. Let's make sure, they were always a step behind because they were thinking what so much, because they were so worried what Lamar was going to do is more reactionary. And that is an issue. You don't ever want to play when you're on a defense. You don't want to ever be reactionary. You don't want to play off. You want a good defense will make the other offense worry that, hey, what are they going to do to us, as opposed to how are we going to stop them?
I just think they didn't want to over pursue, right? They wanted to make sure they stayed home in their responsibility, which just leaves gaps on the field and allows those individuals, like you said, Latavius Murray, Devonta Freeman, Le'Veon Bell, whoever it is, eat up 5, 6, 7 yards per carry.
But that's pretty much for me. That was the game in a nutshell. And like I said, I'm repeating myself, but Lamar Jackson, the fact that he's been so accurate from the pocket, he puts so much stress on the defense. Because no one's thinking of him being a natural thrower, but guess what? He is starting to evolve into one. And the minute you forget that this guy is perhaps one of the fastest players on the field, that's the minute he can run for 30 yards and just totally ruin your third down plan.
I think that's what's becoming the issue this year. Is in the past you said, all right, I'll let Lamar Jackson beat me with his arm, not with his legs. The arm talent's always been there, in my opinion, right? But it was questionable decisions and poor throws, not reading the defense correctly. And clearly the maturation has showed that he's learning defenses. He's understanding how NFL teams are scheming against him. If you looked at this on paper, it wasn't a week ago he accounted for over 500 yards of total offense by himself. This week, I just mentioned just a little over 200 yards, but it's decision making at the right point in the right time. You and I both know every quarterback goes into the huddle and they're getting 2 calls, and it's based on the defense. Here's your run, here's your pass. And I think he's finally saying, I'm going to take what the defense gives me, to your point, right? And if it's a 5-yard handoff, it's a 5-yard handoff. Every play doesn't have to be a 50-yard touchdown, and I think he's getting that, which is helping things click. Are you good? Can I throw in my 2 cents here?
Am I good? After this week? No, all kidding aside,
you should still be good, dude.
So that's what I'm going to say. Before the season came out, and if you were to tell me, Lewis, the Chargers will be 4-2 going to the bye, tied for the lead in the AFC West, I would have been ecstatic. Like I said, they're probably 1 game away from being 5-1, actually, with the playing the Cowboys. But I couldn't be more happier of how they went through this gauntlet. Now their schedule eases up.
Yeah.
Hopefully they get some more guys back off injury. Um, Murray, their middle linebacker. Hopefully Drew Tranquil comes back. Justin Jones, he's another big body that had been missing because he's decent against the rush. But hopefully they start getting these guys that they've been missing for a while back. So I'm happy where the team is right now. But this last week was awful.
You're plenty good.
You need a game like this though to kind of like wake you up and kind of humble you.
This is the NFL. You need to get smacked in the mouth every once in a while. So you and I agree, right? Like we knew this would be a struggle, and we both said it coming after a huge game against the Cleveland Browns in a high-paced scoring game to come east, play in the 1 p.m. Eastern time slot against a roaring Baltimore Ravens team. That's a tough task, man. Would you have liked the game to be a little bit closer than it probably was?
Of course.
Like, sure. But I think the most educated of Chargers fans were expecting to walk out of there with a loss, right? Like it's again, just like I said, teams don't often go 0-17. They're not often going 17-0 either, right? Or 16-1, right? You have losses on the schedule, and that's fine. I think you learn more from losses than you do wins. And I think there's a lot of takeaways that a young Charger team with a new coach can take away from this. What I think was the biggest thing is that game got away from them early, right? So we talked about those fourth down things, those fourth down conversion attempts. I think they even felt pressured and compelled to do those in scenarios where you probably wouldn't. I love the call. Like I love the aggressiveness, but two of those, like you said, yeah, they yielded 6 points, which is not bad, but two of them were deep in their own territory. But this is why I love the NFL, Lou. This is why I love the NFL, because a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they converted those fourth downs, calling similar plays, right? Like they weren't doing anything different. The ball just bounces in mysterious ways in the NFL, and that's what causes parity. And it's incredible. I love it. This is why you hear statistics like where 1 year a team forces 40 turnovers and the next year they force 12, right? Like it's just the ball bounces in funny and mysterious ways. What to me, when I go back to the Lamar thing about like 211 total yards, like, so if you didn't watch this game and you just went and looked at the box score, you'd be like, how did the Chargers not win this game? Like Lamar threw 1 TD. He threw 2 picks, threw for like 160 yards, like ran for like 50 something yards, didn't even rush for a touchdown. You're like, this defense did everything it was supposed to do to win this football game.
All those 3 backs, the
game just got away too quick. Like it just happened too quickly, and it was tough to surmount that. Hey, Justin Herbert looked human. Good. He's going to learn from that. Like I'm happy for him. He can't play superhuman football 17 weeks out of a season. It just doesn't happen.
There is no quarterback. Rodgers has clunkers. Patrick Mahomes has clunkers. Brady has clunkers. Every now and then you have you just don't. It's not your Sunday.
Yeah,
even the greats.
That's why. Hey, listen, one of the greatest football movies of all time is called Any Given Sunday, right? Like on any given Sunday, something can happen. I'm gonna talk about something positive. I have 2 quick negatives, and then we'll roll out of here if you're cool with that.
Let's do it.
My man, Kaiser White. I now know who number 44 is, right? And I am on his bandwagon. You mentioned 2 picks, 8 tackles, 2 passes defense, a QB hit. Like he's been a bright spot on this defense for a couple weeks in a row. So you got to love that maturation process, right? Like how he's playing the game of football, especially with like Kenneth Murray out and like, like people that you've invested in on the defensive side of the ball. Like this is like an unsung hero, like coming out of nowhere. Should be really excited about that. So to me, the offense is never a question in LA. I think they have all of the pieces. I do think they have the pieces on defense, a Bosa, Murray when he's healthy, Derwin James. Like they have somebody at all 3 levels, but to have like this guy who's a converted safety to linebacker playing the way that he's playing, that's a feather in the cap for later in the season. Trust me, this is going to pay off dividends. So my 2 negatives, 26 total rushing yards from the LA Chargers.
Yeah.
last I checked, like that doesn't win football games. And I get it, it's circumstantial. You know, the game got away quick and you are a pass first offense, so you rested on your laurels. I don't give a shit what anybody says, Lou. You want to win football games in the NFL, you still have to run the ball. There still has to be a threat of running the football in the NFL.
Yeah, because like after the first half, wasn't it still 17-6? No,
Yeah,
it's not tremendously out of you
yeah.
to totally abandon the run.
You're talking an easy 2-possession game, right? Not a difficult 2-possession game, an easier 2-possession game. Here's the biggest concern for me. And this has been happening over the last 4 weeks. And we haven't talked about it till now. Keenan Allen has not had tremendous production. He hasn't. Yeah. He's had some big catches in some big spots, yes, right? That have been like, there's Keenan Allen, Mr. Reliable. And I'm not just looking at this like for like 100-yard receiving games, but I think once in the last 4 weeks, he's topped like 75 yards or 70 yards at that point. And I know it's a balancing act. So as Keenan Allen's production is decreasing, I know Mike Williams is rising, which is cool and like neat as a Chargers fan because you've been waiting for Mike Williams to step it up a little bit. I called him a cap casualty to come into this year, right? And I don't think many people would truly disagree with me. But this passing offense has to go through number 13. And I don't want to hear about defenses scheming towards him. Offensive coordinator, I don't know your offensive coordinator's name. I'm comfortable admitting that. Needs to find a way to get number 13 involved. Calls need to be made that scheme this man open. I am documenting. So, Keenan Allen is a top 5 wide receiver in this NFL. He needs to be treated as such.
So a couple of things. First and foremost, it's not all on Herbert or offensive coordinator. It's been on Keenan. He hasn't played it as good as he has in the past. A lot of drop passes, as I stated before, but he just hasn't been what he has been. Yeah, as much. In addition, their offense that does like to spread the ball out more than ever. Last year, he was getting like 17 targets a game. That was never going to happen because they want to spread the ball out more. So I do think he will start seeing more targets and what have you. But it hasn't been all on Herbert or the offensive coordinator. He also has been not as productive on his end as well. So,
and I think that's indicative of the stats, right? Like when you see a stat line of 7 catches for 50 yards, that's not what I expect from 13. It's just not. Mm-hmm. It's just not what I expect, right? Like I expect more. But I think this team needs to come to a realization that I don't care what the maturing process has looked like for Mike Williams, and I'm really happy for him that he's like producing. But if this team wants to be serious, and I believe they are serious, they need more from Keenan Allen. There's just no other way to cut this.
I also say I do think they have a different tendency when it comes to the offensive philosophies. I don't think it's like getting players involved. I actually think they use much more analytics and where the fact they look, okay, who's someone that we want to attack on this defense? For example, Anthony Brown with Dallas Cowboys. Yep. So whoever he's on, we're going to go at him. Doesn't matter who it is. If it's Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, or Jalen Guyton. They had the same thing against the Chiefs. DeAndre Baker was their target on that 4th and 9 pass. Literally, whoever he was lined up against, that was the call. Yep. So if he went up against someone else, they were going to target someone else. So I think it's more of a philosophy who they want to attack as opposed to, hey, who can we get involved type of thing.
And I get all of that, right? Like analytics are one thing, but every once in a while we have to realize this is football. And my best player at that position should be better than their best player at the position opposite of me. And let's always remember that the wide receiver is at an advantage over the defensive back because A, they know the play call, and B, it's impossible to play defensive back in this league right now with PIs and everything else. I just think every now and then you have to force the issue. You have to force the issue. You have to go to your number one guy. And I don't care if it's Marlon Humphrey lined up on him or find a way to make sure that you study the fucking defense and Keenan Allen is in the slot dragging across the football field, and you know it based on responsibility, a safety has to come down on him or a linebacker has to drop off on him, both of which he's going to beat 99 times out of 100. So I hear what you're saying as a fan of this team, but I do put some blame on the offensive coordinator, and I do put some blame on Justin Herbert. Like every once in a while, you have to force the issue. Keenan Allen is a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. If you are a pass happy team, there's no reason why he should receive less than 10 targets a game, period, point blank. It's the way it goes because you're throwing the ball 40 times. So you're going to tell me that you're throwing it less than 20% of the time to your most reliable target. I just don't buy into that. And I just think it's rearing its ugly head over the last 4 weeks. And I'm sorry that I went on that rant about it.
No, listen,
that's a long-term issue that they need to address, dude.
Okay. And we'll see, you know what, the bye going to happen on a perfect week for them. In fact, let's see how they pretty much make what adjustments they make. They already made an adjustment today. They signed Andre Roberts, who is a Pro Bowl return man, and you might give a look like, who cares?
I love the signing, dude. Special teams is a phase of this game, man.
Even at his quote unquote worst year this year, I think it's like 21 yards per return. I think the Chargers, there's like the top one was like 16 yards. Like so, like they're already making changes. Like they're already trying to make changes, and hopefully they realize this run defense is awful, and they start either making some acquisitions, which they probably won't. They won't make any trades. They should, because they have the cap space this year. They still over $12 million this year they can spend. So they have the cap space. They have the need, and guess what? They're in the position. They're first place. Why would you want to just stay the course of the road and let the Chiefs play catch up or what have you? They really should do something. Either it's a signing like a Quan Short or a trade for Akeem Hicks, but they need more bodies up on front in that defensive line.
They do. They got to bolster the run defense for sure. So don't want you to respond to this because we need to move on. Mm-hmm. But they also need to hold open tryouts for kickers. Period. Point blank. It's an issue. I see it in your face. Like I said, you don't need to respond. You've addressed this. I'm just confirming this. So let's put it to bed. The Chargers are still in phenomenal shape compared to your expectations coming into the season.
Of course.
Nothing to sneeze at. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how I think they'll be even better shape after this weekend. So,
okay,
all good. 49ers had a bye week. But guess what? I still have some things to say about the 49ers in their bye week.
Get them.
Lou, I told you this was a situation I'd be monitoring all week long. Trey Lance's injury, Jimmy Garoppolo's injury. Trey Lance hasn't practiced, so we're going to trot out number 10 Sunday night versus the Colts. What did I say a couple weeks ago when they were going to start Trey Lance? I said Kyle left it open to come back to Jimmy. And you last week were actually a proponent of this, which I disagree with, but I understand the philosophy around. And I too was preaching that philosophy for weeks and weeks and weeks leading into the season. But here's the bigger thing, right? Like, while nothing happened this week because we didn't have a game, I think a lot happened in reality. I think there is finally discourse amongst the 49ers brass, i.e. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. I believe this.
Let's hear it.
Why am I concerned about this? Here's my main reason for concern. So John Lynch gives an interview with a local respected reporter, Matt Maiocco, where Matt Maiocco asks him, is there a crisis in San Francisco? And John Lynch, while scratching his ear with like the ultimate poker tell, responding to this,
we're good. He's
like, no, there's no crisis in San Francisco. So I love Matt Maiocco. I think he's a really straightforward reporter. He's not like pro team. He's just like, this is what's going on. I've followed him for a really, really, really long time. And he's one of my trusted resources that I like go to and I listen to and trust what he's putting out there. But I do feel like this was a staged interview. So here's the problem.
Okay.
Here's the problem. If you have to have an interview to come out and say that there's not a crisis, there's a crisis, right? Like
Yeah.
that's literally what it comes out.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, like, but like, what is that crisis? Like, all these rumors are flying. Are Kyle and John on opposite pages? Is Lance the guy Kyle wanted, or that John Lynch and Jed York forced upon Kyle? Like, this is the chatter that you're hearing in,
Yeah, but
in the 49ers world.
When you bring that up to 49ers fans and the people who follow the 49ers, they're like, Shanahan won't let someone call the offensive plays. You think he's going to let someone tell him which quarterback to use? But he has already in the past. He wanted Cousins.
Yep.
Yes. So he has.
I agree, but I do think this. Like, I do, and maybe I'm just convincing myself of this, but this is what I do think. I do think Kyle is infinitely more important than John Lynch. And I
agree.
Executive leadership, Jed York,
what has
all those
Lynch
guys
really done?
Well, that's the thing, right? So I think that, and I hate using this term because I respect John Lynch. Like, how do you not respect John Lynch? An elite NFL football player, a Hall of Fame NFL football player, saying that, like, I just think he's Kyle's puppet, right? Like, Kyle wants these things to happen. I think Kyle handpicked him as a general manager, saying, this is a guy that I trust. And I want you to go out there and parade things that I'm saying. But now I think John has got a mind of his own as well, right? And is like, well, shit, I'm in this position. Let me think about some things that I'm doing. So, but what I also think, Lou, is a lot of this like discourse and a lot of this like craziness that is taking place. I just think losing is breeding that, right? Like, if you were 4-1 or even 3-2 at this point,
you can deal with that little dysfunction.
Winning cures all issues, right? Losing brings out the negativity amongst everybody. So I just think when you had high expectations and you're at 2-3 going into a bye week, heading into week 7, of course there's going to be like chaos, right? But you do have two winnable games coming up against Indy and Chicago in a row. And I think some wins here silences the crowd, silences the critics. One other thing that is throwing a wrinkle in like 49ers world right now is obviously no secret. The Indianapolis Colts are coming to town. We traded DeForest Buckner to the Indianapolis Colts at the start of last season, or prior to the start of last season. DeForest Buckner got interviewed by the Bay Area media today and talked a lot about the contract negotiation and everything that ended up sending him. And he came out and said that he was willing to accept a home team discount, but yet we still shipped them. And yet we paid. So the question came out, well, hey, were you offered like 5 years, $80-something million? And he said no. But that's exactly what we offered Arik Armstead, right? And we thought that the Buckner was going to be the more expensive. Then there's two sides to every story. I totally get this. And it's a pretty cute narrative that he gets the opportunity to talk to Bay media and tell his side of the story. But this is causing even more discourse as to like what's going on. I'm going to talk more about this in a second. So I'm going to end the 49ers like week here with one thing. Lou, you asked me prior to the 49ers Cardinals game 2 weeks ago if that was a must win. And I said no. I said it's as close to a must win without being a must win. And then last week you even said, hey, like if you were even at 2-4 coming out of week 7, you're still competitive in the NFC. And I don't entirely disagree. But what I am saying to you, with all of this chaos going on and Jimmy G coming back and Lance injured and who's going to be quarterback and yada, 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 yada. Sunday night, hosting the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday Night Football is a must-win football game, period.
Yeah, coming off a bye. Yep.
2 weeks to prepare for a team. 2 weeks.
That's frankly
have to win that game.
It's mediocre. I know they've been playing better as of late, but
got to win the football game. Got to win the football game.
Because if you can't beat the Colts at home, preparing for them 2 weeks, who can you really compete with?
My point. So
I think you guys get it done too.
I don't, but we'll talk about that in a few. So clearly you can sense from the tone of my voice that I'm freaking out.
Yeah, you are freaking.
So that leads us into I'm freaking out, right? So like give me your I'm freaking out moment, your overreaction moment. What's the team? What's the scenario? What's the situation? Positive, negative. Tell me it all.
I'm gonna start with the positive before the negative. Uh, I got a lot of flack this last week and a half from a bunch of my buddies who are Cowboys fans saying, how come you guys don't talk about us? You don't cover us as much as other teams like your Bills, your Packers, and your what have you. You know what? I gotta do better than that. I don't have any animosity towards the Cowboys. I'm not an NFC. I don't have an NFC team that I follow, so I don't care about the Cowboys in a positive or negative way. There's only two teams in the world I hate. One is the Jets, and the other is the Patriots. So I have no skin in this game when it comes to Cowboys. But damn,
The
how about
Jets,
them?
the Jets is so funny to me because it's like literally one game that it's predicated on that. I
No,
feel
it's like two. It's like two or
okay.
three.
All
Yeah.
right, but
But I'm gonna say though, how about them Cowboys? This past week, Dallas showed me that they can overcome their biggest weakness. Do you know what their biggest weakness is?
You're gonna tell me,
Yeah, okay. Their coaching. They overcame
like
their talent.
McCarthy.
Yeah. Their talent is so good. I'm talking about McCarthy. Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator, has actually changed and reinvented himself from a guy who was a strictly cover three guy to now more man
I love
coverage,
what I'm seeing from their defense. By the way,
more
I love
attacking,
what
more
I'm seeing.
aggressive.
Yeah,
So I wasn't high on Dan Quinn, but once again, I was wrong. He has been phenomenal transforming that defense, and they have a bunch of young talent. So good for him for cultivating that young talent and actually, being very opportunistic when it comes to taking the ball away from opposing offenses. But their talent is so good, the Cowboys, that it can show that they will overcome Mike McCarthy's mismanagement of the game. And that's exactly what they did this past weekend. They were getting out coached, but somehow, some way, still found that they were able to win the game because that's how good this team is. So if I'm freaking out in a positive way, the Cowboys are legit because normally 9 times out of 10, they would have lost that game against New England. And that's a perfect game for them to choke, and they did it. So good for them for, figuring things out, having a healthy Dak and a bunch of weapons around Dak.
yeah. I mean, listen, I was always said it. Bad teams find way to lose. Good teams find ways to win. I think that game was a lot closer than it probably should have been,
Go back to
but
the
they found
tape,
out
by
to
the way.
win.
What did I say? Like, this game's going to be closer than a lot of people think. And I
Well,
knew it.
listen,
Because of coaching. It's because of
yes,
coaching.
because in the NFL, coaching actually matters.
Coaching is the most
Unlike
important
any other
thing.
sport, it is. Um, so I
Who you
too
freaking?
I too had the Cowboys. I had a couple here just because I didn't know
Interesting.
which way we were going to go.
Okay.
And my sentiment's very similar to the Cowboys, so I'll just say like I agree with you. So I'll start positive before I go negative. So I'm gonna start positive with the Ravens. I
Mm-hmm.
think the Baltimore Ravens fans are loving life right now. It was doom and gloom in the preseason with constant injuries, specifically at the running back position for a run heavy team, but they continue to find ways to win as good teams do. 14 players, Lou, on IR since the preseason. I was told that teams who suffer a ton of injuries can't win in the NFL. I mean, that was literally the 49ers excuse in 2020. But they, so far, 6 weeks into the season, they have disproved that theory. Here's the reality: good coaching and a really good quarterback
Mm-hmm.
can take you really far
That's
in
true.
this league. The big one for me, though, is how they will fare without the most recent injury. They're starting left tackle in Ronnie Staley, who's now down for the year. That's an outlier to me. Can they surmount this injury? I do believe they will, and I
I
believe
think
they
they
will,
can.
and they won't look back. Like this team's riding high. They're clicking on all cylinders. They're doing everything right. But I will go back to my previous statement. As long as you have a really good coach and a really good quarterback, which check and check they have, you should be really excited about this Baltimore Ravens team this year. Now they might not do the 15-2, 14-3 with 17 game season, but this is a playoff team, a division winner, and they're going to go really deep into the playoffs.
I said that last week. I think they might have been one of my overreaction positives. You basically we have the same sentiment when it comes to thinking about the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson because of how much he's changed. So I'm on that bandwagon as well with how far they can go. How about
do you have a negative or do you have a positive?
You can go negative first if you want.
I
Do you have a negative?
Yeah,
you go negative first. I don't want to steal your thunder. Go ahead.
I'm just super negative lately, and which is like so the antithesis of what I normally am.
Mm-hmm.
And this might seem like a homer cop out, but I'm freaking out as a 49ers fan, right? Like I'm just freaking
Talk to
me. We had a bye week and I'm freaking out, right? So, but I'm genuinely concerned that the rose-colored glasses are no longer in San Francisco. Here's what I'm thinking. This is my concept here. So our second round pick and our 2 third-round picks in the 2021 NFL draft have barely seen the field. And when I say barely seen the field, I mean one of those picks has barely seen the field. The other two haven't even sniffed the field. So I'm talking about Aaron Banks out of Notre Dame, who has been a healthy scratch every single game so far.
That's concerning.
Trey Sermon, who's been a part of 2 football games, one of which when all the other running backs were injured, and actually had a great game. I don't understand why we're not going back to him, but just seemingly the week that Mitchell comes back, Sermon sees like 3 snaps all game, right? Like it's all Mitchell. The other one is Ambry Thomas, right? A defensive back from Michigan. Who, yes, I know didn't play in 2020 at Michigan, etc. But you spent a 3rd round pick on this guy, and he played literally like in week 1, and he was like returning kicks, and that was like god awful to watch.
Yeah, it's not like you don't have an area of need for when it comes to defensive backs.
Yeah, like if we have that need, like let the rook play. Like growing pains are important. Yeah, like see what you have, see what you invested in, and then you have last year's 2nd first-round pick in Brandon Ayuk, who just can't seem to get meaningful targets after what most people would classify as a super stellar rookie season, right? And now all of a sudden he's in the doghouse. I won't go into the statistics in terms of like separation yards and things of that nature, because he's on par with some of the league leaders. He just doesn't have the targets. He just doesn't have the catches. He just doesn't have the production. So to me, those are some really big whiffs. I won't even get into Javon Kinlaw and injuries, right, with his knee that have been holding him out, that your other 1st-round pick from last year. So those are just big whiffs with early picks that just are not, they're impacting this team. They're just impacting this team in a very negative way right now. It just feels really weird in San Francisco. Like, who's to blame? Is it Kyle, who I believe makes the decisions here? Or is it John Lynch, who on paper you would think makes the decisions here as the general manager? Is Lynch really Kyle's puppet? Is Kyle really soon to be on the hot seat? Like those sort of things. Now, I'm disappointed with Kyle without question right now, but I'm not a dummy, Lou. And I know if Kyle Shanahan was to be fired tomorrow, he'd literally be unemployed for less than 5 minutes, right? Yep. Like there are other teams that would just legit just fire their head coach like right at that moment in time in the middle of the season and say, okay, like you guys are idiots. So I'm going to go ahead and hire this guy. But for an organization that since like 2017 has felt like it's on the same page when this scheme came in, even though we haven't been like super productive, right? Like we have 1 winning season since 2017. Yeah, it amounted to a Super Bowl appearance, but it just feels like they're in complete opposition with one another.
Like, is your window already closed? Like, you're probably wondering, like, was that it? Like, usually that doesn't happen. Usually, but like after that, it's been MIA lately.
The talent says no, but everything that's happening like off the field and behind the scenes says, yeah, that window is come and gone. I just think that the overreaction here is that this team needs a win desperately to get back on track. Sunday night, you're hosting the Indianapolis Colts on national television. This team needs to win are the wheels are completely falling off this bus. Just completely falling off, and it's going to be complete discourse. And that's what it is, man.
Save. I was going to ask you, like, who do you think wins, but save for our quick pick'ems.
I will.
Real quick, I won't take too much more time. Browns or my negative freaking out. Everyone loved, including us, what they did this offseason, the talent they added to that defense, their draft picks. We loved everything what Cleveland has done, but sometimes it's just not your year as a team. They have been slammed with injuries to players that are literally critical to their success. Baker Mayfield's out. Hunt is out. Chubb is out. Their two starting tackles, Willis and Conklin, are both out. Clowney missed some time. Garrett is banged up as well, even though he's still playing. I don't know if they can turn this around, all these injuries around, and see if they can hang around with Big Brother in Baltimore playing the way they are. And the emergence of Joe Burrow now in the Bengals. They're quietly 4-2, the Bengals. I'm not saying they're there yet, but they're no longer a rollover team either. So the Browns that a lot of people had going far and doing really good this year, including myself, I think yourself too. I feel because of their injury situation, they're going to find themselves possibly out of it sooner than they thought.
Yeah, I think the Baker Mayfield injury is detrimental. The two running backs, right? Like I had my brother-in-law text me earlier today being like, hey, do I play this guy this week?
Dearness
I had to think for a second. I'm like, who is it? Oh, the third string running back from Cleveland. I'm just like, just probably not, you know, because obviously the talent level is just a huge drop off regardless of scheme. And now you're starting Case Keenum rolling into Thursday night. An issue for sure. All right,
cool. Let's pick some. Now this is the segment where we pick offensive, defensive players that stood out for us this past week. I'm going to default to you first because I want you to start going first more. So tell me, for offensively, who is your go-to guy?
You like that? Kirk Cousins, baby. 33 of 48 for 373 yards and 3 TDs, a 112.6 rating in a win in an overtime game. I'm just liking what I'm seeing from the Vikings right now. Like I knew like they got off to a cold start, and I knew just talent-wise they're a better football team than their record indicated. But for me, game ball on the offensive side of the ball this week, it is 100% Kirk Cousins.
All right. Like I told my fellow friends, my fellow Dallas Cowboy fans and enthusiasts, I will start talking them up more because it is warranted. We kill them when they do bad. You might as well, when they're doing good, you might as well acknowledge them.
Yep.
CD Lamb, 9 catches, 149 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including the game winner. He balled out and showed who I thought was the best wide receiver in that draft. Even with Jefferson, Ruggs, and Judy, he's showing that he's becoming a complete wide receiver. So he was one of my offensive players of the week.
I have CD on my list. I have Dak on my list. Do you got one more that you want to do?
I got 2 more I can do real quick.
Do one.
Okay. You know what? This was a bigger. Derrick Henry, 20 carries, 143 yards, 3 touchdowns, 7.2 yards per carry average.
Yep. So I had Henry here. So I'll do one more too.
Even though Taylor had a better line, I feel like Jonathan Taylor, but it wasn't as big as a game.
I had Taylor on my list too. So 14 for 145 and two tutties.
It's a 10.4 average per carry that was impressive with Taylor.
But I want to keep this in perspective. An 83-yard carry, right?
Yeah, I get it.
But if you look at the other 13 touches that equate to that, you're still averaging over 5 yards carry, which is a strong indication of a solid performance in the NFL. Yeah. So a lot of cool offensive performances. What was really cool was to see that not a lot of them were your quarterbacks, which is pretty traditional, right? Like you had some other skill positions contributing. So let's go. I am equally excited about the defensive side of the ball.
You go first.
All right. So my number one, Kaiser White from that Los Angeles Chargers, 8 tackles, a tackle for a loss, 2 passes defensed, 1 QB hit, and 2 INTs in a game where Lou, when you go down against the Baltimore Ravens 17-0 in the manner in which they did on the defensive side of the ball, it's really easy to give up. What I
Mm-hmm.
loved about number 44 is he did not give up in this game, and he tried to make an impact play on every single snap. So, Kaiser White, this game ball is for you this week, sir.
The beauty of contract years. So I have TJ Watt. He balled out this past week. He had 7 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks, 3 pass defenses, and 1 forced fumble. He literally almost had something up in every category in the stat sheet right there. Very impressive with TJ Watt, complete player. So kudos to him for balling out this week.
Yeah, I had TJ on my list too, right? I think the most important thing was that forced fumble happened in
I
overtime
was more
in Seattle.
impressed by the pass defenses by him.
Oh, I mean,
I just
I don't want to criticize the man, but JJ would have picked those off. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Do you got another on defense? Because I got one more.
I got one more too. Max Crosby, 6
All right,
tackles,
we're on the
3
same page.
sacks.
We're on the
Yeah,
same page.
I mean, whenever you have
Yeah,
a 3-sack game,
yeah.
that's you gotta be mentioned.
I did actually going back through the week. There was a couple solid defensive performances from a number of
There
players.
were,
Like I had Taylor Rapp as well.
yeah, he
5
had 2
tackles,
picks.
3 passes defense, a QB hit, so he's getting some
Mm-hmm.
pressure right from the safety position, 2 picks. So
And also,
really cool week.
we need the stat boy, but I think another reason why you liked him this week, he's a former Husky, Washington Husky,
Bro, I love my Husky
defensive back.
DBs. Yeah, I almost had Trayvon Diggs just because it was almost too easy. Like another week, another pick, another defensive touchdown. But I didn't like that big touchdown. I know scheme wise, it probably didn't feel like man to man, but I also think he pulled the typical diva D back stuff where like
Oh
once he
yeah,
got by him, kind of looked at the safety like, where are you? For a big touchdown in a big spot. But like dude just continues to put up stats. Love him. All right. So we head into week 7. Not the sexiest of schedules this week, Lou.
no, not really.
What are you watching?
Do you want to go first again? Or do you want me to go?
I'll go first.
I'll go first. Go ahead.
I'm just feeling like that. Tonight's the night. Number 1 item of interest is the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Tennessee Titans.
In particular, King Henry, and that's what I have here. I'd love to see what's going to happen with that.
So this is in Tennessee. Both teams got back on track last week after reeling a little bit, right? I think the Titans did it in a huge way against the Buffalo Bills, where Kansas City did it in an expected way against an ailing Washington football team.
They did struggle against them.
Yes, they did.
The first half.
This is 2 preseason favorites in the AFC who have hit skids, and I think both of their identities have been questioned so far this season, and they're slipping a little bit. I think the winner of this game is right back in it. Their confidence is rolling. To me, this is the biggest game on the schedule without question.
Okay, I'm going to stay in the AFC because I believe the AFC is the best conference there is. Bengals versus Ravens.
Great game. Can't wait.
You got to think about it. Ready? Ravens 5-1. Bengals 4-2. Can the Bengals make a little noise? I'm not talking about beat the Ravens. If they beat them, I mean that's a lot of noise. But if they make a little noise, keeping it close, to show that hey, we're not going to be happy being your little brother anymore. Or does Baltimore start? This is like where they start just running away with the division. Here they are when you beat your divisional opponent. That's really like 2 wins because you knock your division rival down 1, and you have another win too. So that's actually a 2-game effect right there. So I want to see how the Bengals are going to play against the Ravens. Usually these games are close because they're within division, but it should be interesting to see if they can confuse Joe Burrow like they did Justin Herbert.
Yeah. We'll reserve the outcome for when we get to the pick'em section of this, but I agree. I do have one more that I'm interested in, and it's a homer pick, but Sunday night
I had that game too.
Sunday night, 49ers hosting the Colts. For me, this is for all the obvious reasons, Lou. But there's one overlooked importance of this game. And to me, it's because so far the NFL is undefeated in prime time matchups on Thursday night, Sunday night, and Monday night games. They have all been close. They have all been competitive. And even though some of them have been sloppy at times and like maybe not the most entertaining, they've been must watch television. This is like the best thing to ever happen to the NFL, to have these games and those primetime spotlights. And I want to see if this game continue trend or can continue the trend. It's just one of those things, dude, where I kind of feel like one of these teams is probably going to get mopped up, and I'm not like super positive about it. The 49ers are favored according to the spread, but to me, they feel very much like the underdogs. And as I said it earlier, this is a must-win game for the 49ers. But outside of this being a homer pick, to me, this game is equally as valuable to the NFL to ensure that they maintain the competitiveness of their primetime matchups.
Yeah, it's funny. Before the season started, both the Niners and Colts were held in such high regard to being legitimate contenders, and they've both gone off to a really rocky road to start the season off. And I feel like a win here could possibly be that catapult to start that that reversing of course and starting to fix themselves. So whoever win here, I feel like really can start changing their narrative of the season.
Yep. You got another, or would you want to get into the pick'ems?
Let's get into the pick'ems.
All right. Thursday night, tomorrow night, Broncos at Browns.
I don't know what would make anyone say Browns.
Yeah.
I think it would have to be Broncos there.
This is Broncos.
With all those injuries.
All right. Let's get into Sunday. First game up, Panthers at New York Football Giants.
Give me the Giants. There's been a tremendous amount of regression from the Panthers last 3 weeks. They've been 0-3 last 3 weeks. Giants defense is decent. I feel like the Panthers offense has been really sluggish. And I think this is one of those weird games that the Giants just win.
I just think this is a get right game for Carolina. I'm a Giant season ticket holder. Like my family, like it's bad in New York right now. Like it's bad. I'm going with Carolina. Speaking of New York, Jets at Patriots.
Patriots
here too. Chiefs at Titans.
I'm going to say Chiefs, believe it or not.
See, I'm going Titans. I think this is one of those games where you're like, hey, look, you just came off. This is the Chargers Browns all over again, right? Like just came off of this like super stoked win. But I think the difference for the Titans in this instance is they run the football so well, right? Like, and the consistency is there. And Kansas City's defense is as poor as defenses could possibly be right now. In another scenario, I think if King Henry tops 100 yards rushing, this is a Titans win all day. I'm going Titans.
Okay.
The Washington football team at the Green Bay Packers.
Has to be the Packers.
Yeah, I'm Pack all day. The Atlanta Falcons at the Ailing Miami Dolphins.
Ooh, this one's a tough one. It's at Miami.
It's at Miami.
Atlanta just came off a bye. You know what? Give me Miami.
Yeah, I think I have Miami here too. And to me, the scale is tilted just because it's a home game. I mean, That's literally what it amounts to. But you're going from a turf team to an artificial grass team. I'm going Miami. Next game up, Cincinnati Bengals at Baltimore Ravens.
I'm going to tell you, it's going to be closer than people probably would project. But I still, how can you go against Lamar?
You can't. I think this is Ravens all day, but I think this is like a 3-point game, right? This is a division.
I think it's
game.
a back and forth. I think it's a lot of high scoring.
Yeah, but I think the winner is who's got the ball last, and I think it's a 3-point game is what it comes down to. All right, you got the 0-6 Lions at the 5-1 Rams.
Revenge game. So obviously I'm going with the Rams.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jared Goff.
Yeah. Dude, I think this is like a 16-point spread, which in the NFL is like unheard of. It might even be more than that. I'm Rams.
I would take the Lions to cover that if that's the truth.
I wouldn't.
They've been playing team stuff.
Yeah, but this is coming to LA. Stafford wants
He's
to prove
used to
this
it.
is the right decision. You already got the brass. You literally have Dan Campbell coming out and being like, I need more from my quarterback, which is like a little weird because the reality is like you knew what you were getting when you traded for him, and you traded him for the picks. You didn't trade for the quarterback compensation, you know? All right. Eagles at Raiders.
I'm gonna go Raiders.
Yeah, I'm going Raiders too. I like what they're doing. Texans at Cardinals.
Cardinals.
Yeah, Cardinals. Bears at Bucks.
Let me go Bucks.
Colts at Niners.
I'm going Niners, man.
I'm going Colts.
I think that's just you just guarding your heart or whatever you said to me before when I used to deal with the Chargers. You can't. I think it'd be.
No, I don't. I believe this team is
coming off a bye at home.
I just think this team's on tilt right now. It's not
Carson Wentz is one sneeze away from like a torn, ankle.
Triple hamstring injury.
Yeah, like Carson Wentz sprained all 10 of his fingers.
Yeah. All right. Monday night, Saints at Hawks.
Yeah, I go Saints.
Yeah, I'm going Saints. No Russell Wilson, no chance in Seattle.
Fun thing is, I think the Seahawks are actually 0-2 at home too. So then they haven't been playing good at home. Granted, one of them was against with Geno Smith was quarterback, but still, that used to be an awful place to go to opposing teams, and it hasn't translated this year.
Yeah, again, it's the teams go as quarterbacks go, and the Seahawks have gone as Russell Wilson's gone for a long, long time. You see real quick how invaluable Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are without Russell Wilson there. I think the Saints win this one. I think it'll be competitive because it is home and it's still.
And you always got Jameis. When Jameis is the quarterback, it's like, always. I'm talking about for a negative.
I mean, listen, if he turns the ball over, hey, game changes. All right, so we're out of our picks.
Real quick though, next week I'm giving you a homework assignment. See what our records are.
I will. I'll come back and listen and remember what our picks were. I think the only one that we're opposites on is the Chiefs game and
the Giants game.
Giants and Panthers game and the Colts Niners, right? So there's only 3 games that I really got, but I will come back and make sure that I'm confident on and we'll do that week moving forward. I think what I'll start to do is I'll write down what we're saying or highlight some way somehow so I can come back and easily fact check instead of having to listen to us for 40 minutes.
Who would want to listen to us?
So I'm probably the only one who listens to us multiple times. So final and favorite segment. I say this every single time. Fantasy sleepers of the week. And again, that's just the title of our segment. Lou, you know what I'm always looking for. I'm not looking for you must play Dalvin Cook this week. He has a favorable matchup. I am looking for I have an injured quarterback. I got 30 people on COVID. I got 10 other people on IR. Who am I plugging in based on bye weeks, etc.?
Our pets' heads are falling off.
Yeah, who am I playing? Tell me who I'm playing.
Well, I have a couple of good tight ends. Mike Gesicki with the return of Tua Tagovailoa.
I have no tight ends, by the way.
What happened?
I have no tight ends, by the way.
So I feel like Gesicki against Atlanta will be he always plays good when Tua's under center. So look for Mike Gesicki to actually ball out. Last week he did good too. I think he had over 100 yards too. Of course, I sat him for Dawson Knox, but that's neither here nor there. But also Ricky Seals-Jones. He did pretty good against Kansas City. And what's the best thing for a mediocre to average quarterback? That's their tight end, their security blanket. They go home at night just dreaming about dumping off and hopefully just him getting the extra yardage. So he did good last week. I predict he's going to do good as well. And last but not least, Jalen Waddle. He did good. I know you're not a Tua fan, neither am I, but he's severely better than Jacoby Brissett. And it showed with the numbers that some of these playmakers were actually putting up last week. Hence, it was against the Jaguars. I get that, but Atlanta, they're not too far, they're not too much better than the Jaguars defense. So that's why I'm throwing out some Miami players.
Yeah, I'm relatively similar to you right in this week. So I legitimately cannot believe I'm even speaking these words, but Tua Tagovailoa, I think is a start this week. But this one to me is just about matchups, period, point blank. He had a solid game against Jacksonville in London last week, drew the Falcons this week, which is a favorable matchup. So if you have Josh Allen or Kirk Cousins or somebody that's sitting on a bye week this week, or you have Baker Mayfield who's injured and obviously not playing on Thursday night, this is an opportunity in a favorable matchup. I have two others because you threw out there too. One of them is J.D. McKissick.
Okay.
So, Lou, to me, J.D. McKissick, it just always feels like he gets more burn as the season progresses, right? I think he's like one of those guys, and I do this. I'm guilty of this. I have him in 2 leagues where I draft him and I stash, and I know I stash him. I just stash him and hope that I can hang on to him and don't have to draft him because I feel like as the season progresses, he gets more and more relevant. You got Antonio Gibson, who's a little banged up.
He has a fractured shin.
Yeah. So I can't even name who their other backup actual like first and second down running back is. And the way that this game flow will go, it's probably going to get out of hand early. And that just plays into JD McKissick's favor. And like we've always said, fantasy doesn't care about the score or the outcome of the game. It cares about favorable matchups and game flow. And I think this will play to him. So if you have injuries, you have bye weeks, you have players out due to COVID or whatever it is, McKissick is your guy to start this week. A little caveat there is maybe even Michael Carter from the New York Jets. Looks like he started to get a little bit of the lion's share, if you will, last week. It'll be about production. But if trends continue and you're in a tight spot, which I am in one league due to 7 people on IR, 3 people out with COVID, Michael Carter's getting in the starting lineup. But my final guy is Henry Ruggs. Again, more words than I am shocked that I am actually speaking. I am not a believer in Henry Ruggs. I won't even get into the bet that I have with my next door neighbor right now about Henry Ruggs versus Jerry Jeudy and things that we have going over the next like literally 3 years of our lives related to this. To me, Ruggs coming out of college was like a one-trick pony. I thought he was a product of the offense and other really good wide receivers that he had around him. Outside of him, he's proven to be nothing but inconsistent in the NFL. But I do think last week was not an anomaly. I think it was a little bit of his coming out party and the offense finally finding a way to recognize what his talent is. And he draws the lifeless defense of the Philadelphia Eagles this week. So again, if you are in a COVID or injury or bye week scenario and you have Henry Ruggs on your bench and you've been hesitant every week and then you're mad that you had him on your bench last week and he put up, I don't even know what it was, 20 points or whatever it might be. I think this is the week that he finds himself at the very least in your flex, if not one of your wide receiver positions.
Yeah, I mean, I should apologize first and foremost about last week. My 2 picks last week were god awful. It was Javonte Williams against the Raiders and Taylor Heineke against the Chiefs. They did not amount to anything. But the week before I did good. It was Dawson Knox. That's why it's hit or miss. It's hit or miss.
Bro, fantasy, what have I always told you? Lucky versus good. Dude, I'm not even going to lie. In one league, I was a 60-point favorite going into this week. And I got mopped, bro. I got mopped by people like, oh my God. Who's the wide receiver down in Jacksonville that used to Marvin Jones? I don't know why I was drawing like Marvin Jones having a baller week, Christian Kirk having a baller week. Like, dude, when you looked at the lineup that I was facing versus who's on my team, you're like, bro, I don't even have to monitor this. And I got mopped, dude. And that's with Josh Allen and and Derrick Henry doing what they did this week.
Wow.
And got mopped.
Yeah.
Better to be lucky than good always. Names will remain nameless. The individual who mopped me does listen to our show, so he'll have a good chuckle at this if he makes it this far into it. So that wraps us up for week 6. Inevitably, we will be back for week 7 coverage. Really looking forward to watching some of these games this weekend. Lou, like I always do, going to rely on you to tell the audience how they can find us, where they can follow us.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at WTF Pod NFL.
Yep. And like I did last week, and I'll continue to do moving forward, we're doing our darndest to promote our presence on YouTube. Lou and I are doing the best we can to be graphic artists and video specialists. It will come with time. I promise you that. But check us out on YouTube at WE''RE talkingfootball.com. Hope you'll check it out. Hope you'll like it. Hope you'll subscribe. Lou, as always, really enjoyed our time together and look forward to doing this again next week, sir.
Until next week, bro.
Adios, my man.